All right, everybody, what's going on? We want to thank you for tuning in with us tonight. Uh, Georgia Prison Watch podcast. I know we skipped a week, but we are back this week, and we definitely thank everybody for joining us tonight. Here with my um, co-host Susan Sparks Burns. She is the founder of They Have No Voice prison advocacy group. Susan, are you with me?
I am.
How are you
Uh,
tonight?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome, everybody. We hope we'll have an interesting hour here tonight. It's one of those things I wish we weren't getting together for, but we appreciate you being here.
All right, so as I said, we missed last week. I think our both of our schedules just didn't hook up last week. Like I said, we're trying to make this a consistent podcast and consistent live weekly because there's just so much to touch on, and if we couldn't just touch on everything in 1 hour, and sometimes we go over 1 hour. So we wanted to try to do it every week if we can, and if we can get our schedules together. So once again, we thank everybody for joining us tonight. And Susan, you want to go ahead and jump
Uh,
into our first?
yes, I guess I wanted to start, if I may, by reminding everybody that GDC has published the facilities directory, uh, and it's dated August 1st. Please, please, please go to the GDC website and download the facilities directory. It is, there you go. It's very possibly the most useful document that they put on the website. Please have it. Don't wait until an emergency to find out what's in this facilities directory. If something happens to your loved one, you want to know who to call, who to reach out to, who they report to, who else, if they're out of town, who's going to take their calls. You want to know, and you'll only know by looking at the facilities directory. So, just want to encourage you to do that. Um, and on the subject of uh, emergencies and when things happen, we want you to be aware of something that we've talked about before, and that is, how do we go about making things right? What steps can we take as we gather here in this podcast? What steps can we take to make sure that things things that would be conditions and treatment, that those things get changed? It We all know one thing: these things staying like they are is completely unacceptable as a status quo. We have to make things change. We've talked in the past about possibly um, bringing a couple of lawsuits, and that looks like we are getting closer to doing so. Um, ah, we have had so many deaths. We are we want to make sure that we have the ability to file lawsuits. Now, the filing fee is $350 per lawsuit, and if you could do some quick math, that'd get you to $1,000 as a goal with 3 lawsuits just to file. So, please, if you will, give some thought to helping fund these lawsuits. Um, let's see.
Yeah, and let me jump in here real quick while
Thank
we're
you.
while we're talking about these lawsuits. And Susan alluded to it, and we um, I mentioned just, I don't know, the last podcast that we did, um, the hot cage incidents that took place a couple of weeks ago at the Telfair State Prison. I alluded to lawsuits then, and we're 100% going to be filing a lawsuit very soon against the Georgia Department of Corrections for these hot cages. We know that they continue to use these hot cages. They continue to put people in these cages, both inside the facility and both outside of facilities. We know that they're using them in 100-degree temperatures outside. So, enough of the talk. We're going to be filing a lawsuit here in probably the next 30 days. Susan has already did the letter of intent to sue that's required before a lawsuit can be filed. But we're not going to continue to talk about it, and we're not going to continue to sit by and watch people die. Because of the negligence of the GDC. So talk is cheap. Me and Susan, we've talked about it, and we've been strategizing, and we've spoken with an attorney who's going to assist us, and we're going to put their feet to the fire, and they're going to stop using these cages. It's nothing but a death trap, and no, we can't make them do it, but a judge can make them do it, and we're going to see to that they stop using these cages. So if you can help us out, our goal is $1,000, as Susan alluded to just a minute ago. It's $350 to file these lawsuits, plus other things that we have to do, to get everything rolling with that. So we have a goal of $1,000. If you can help us out, information is there on the screen. Susan is very optimistic that we'll get to that we'll make our goal. And I implore you, if you believe in our work, and you want to help us out, and if you're tired of seeing these cages and you're tired of seeing people dying in these cages, then please consider giving to us because it will help us tremendously as we go up to fight to get them to have them stop using them. So, Susan, anything else before we move on?
No, this is an interesting process to me. I'm a newbie to lawsuits, and I think what we're asking for, we're not asking really for anything other than stop using these cages, and by stopping we mean disassemble them. If we say weld them shut, that's easily cut with the same welder. So no, we think that that's the way to go at this, is remove them from the state prisons. And we're aware of other types of hot boxes outside. And there may be some other similar things to the cages. We don't mean just those that look just like our picture. We mean all of them. So I don't know how we can all come down on any side except what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have to we shouldn't have to go the litigation route. It would appear to me that they would know after so many deaths to stop using them. But I've come up with a new word for them thanks to what's his name, Susan? Thanks to council member Eric Mays. I call them the Shady Bunch now. So I will never look at them again as the Georgia Department of Corrections. I call them the Shady Bunch. Moving on, but as I said again, if you appreciate our work, if you appreciate our advocacy and what we do for the prisoners and those incarcerated in Georgia, please give to us, donate to us. Any amount will be very, very helpful. we understand that you have a lot of stuff to do, especially if you have loved ones incarcerated. But any amount that you can give to us will be very appreciative, and it's going to go to a good use. Because I think at this point the only thing they understand is lawsuits, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
all right, Susan. Before we go on, you got anything else, or are you ready to move?
I uh, I am looking at both of our groups, or my group, your page, and not seeing the broadcast. Can you help me? So I want to make sure we are broadcasting.
Yeah, I'll share it into the group.
Okay, thank you.
I can't walk you through it, but I
Okay,
can share it in there.
thank you. Appreciate that. Um, yeah, we have talked about. I guess actually we haven't talked about it because our last podcast was before we had 2 deaths at Valdosta State Prison in 2 days, and these uh, these were both men in their. I think they were both in their. Well, one was around 40, the other 30, but their uh, their names are. Oh, let me go a little bit. Lance Lampkin and Quotient Bostwick. And those were both homicides. And I had someone get in touch with me when Mr. Lampkin was killed, and he told me that Mr. Lampkin was killed by Mental Health 3. And if I'm not mistaken, the the man who was killed the next day, Mr. Bostwick, was Mental Health 3. In addition to that, we had 2 earlier suicides at Valdosta State Prison that, as best I understand, were also Mental Health 3. Um, that's very disturbing, just on its face. These are people who are mentally disabled in some way and should be in the care of Georgia Department of Corrections, and that includes mental health care. Yet there's something really amiss when we are locking down our mental health threes and they are dying while they're locked down. I'm as we were getting ready for this today, it just about overcame me that we're talking about relatively young people dying just one after another. Those 2 at Valdosta, though, one one on the 30th, one on the 31st. And curiously enough, we might even say remarkably enough, those were the only homicides that GDC reported in the month of July. Well, we found out some news on the subject of deception. We found out a little bit of news about that possibly they provided us a list of 25 people that didn't include all the people who had died.
Right. Well, we're going to get there later. So, but continue. Do you know what Mental Health 3 stands for? If you know.
I believe that they are on medication for mental health, and that they are being seen periodically by a mental health professional. Beyond that, I don't know. It's not my area of expertise, but I'm sure if I stick around long enough, I'll learn. Do you, Brian?
No, I don't. I don't. And I was trying to possibly look it up, but I really don't. I really don't know.
Um, we have a group member that we may be able to talk her into participating at some point, who has a great deal of experience with mental health and Georgia Department of Corrections. And that may be something that we all need to learn a little bit about, because it appears that um, that's a risk factor. uh, that if you are in the care of Georgia Department of Corrections and um, you have mental health problems, you don't want to land on a spreadsheet like we're looking at here tonight.
Right.
So,
And do we um and just to recap, do we know so in the month of July for Valdosta, you said that there was additional, was it more suicide? It was two
it,
suicides?
I believe one was in June and one either late May or early. No, and one was either late or April or early May. But within the last 3 months, there were 4 deaths, 2 suicides that were earlier on, and then these 2 homicides just last week.
Right. And it's something, Susan, when you look at it is, how do you have two homicides within 24 hours of each other, and it goes to negligence because you just had a homicide 24 hours 24 hours before the last one, and you're still letting people run around as if nothing has happened.
Excuse me, but isn't the procedure to lock the prison down? It's certainly where the homicide takes place, surely. And
No, I mean,
like
and so, but you're starting to see that a lot, when you have incidents at facilities, they're just starting to, not lock the entire prison down. They're just locking down the dorm that it happened in. And, I think that's half-assed backwards, if you ask me, because, anything can happen. Anything can spread within minutes in these facilities. Um, and, they're not locking them down and things are spreading. So, the number one question that I have when I learned about the second death is, how was it possible to happen?
uh, boy, this is a good question. Um, it doesn't seem possible yet. If I'm not mistaken, we've just seen a couple of close calls at Smith State Prison that involved, well, life flights within 2 days, within 24 hours of each other. And again, how is this happening? Clearly, there is a problem, and we had talked. You and I talked 3 or 4 months ago. If you have gross understaffing, what can you do? And no one wants to hear this, I know, but 23-1 comes up every time in the mix of what can you do. Which, I mean, because apparently you can't hire enough people to fill all the vacancies.
No, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, and Mindy, you've had this discussion um, several times now. But if you don't have and I'm just piggybacking on what you said. I'm not trying to steal what you just said. But when you're in these facilities and you don't have the adequate staff to run these facilities, it makes no sense to me why you have full blown movement like you have. There's the capacity of staff there to run these places. And that goes back to what we were talking about, on our first podcast that we did. I think that empowers the gangs to feel like they can control these places because, they don't see the staff, they don't see anybody there that's paid to be there to run these places, and they feel like they're entitled, empowered to to run these places. So, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever on how you can, run these places and you have no staff whatsoever and you're still, running them at full capacity. It's crazy.
The last thing, I mean, I can only speak to what it's like as a parent, but I wouldn't want to know that my loved one is locked in a cell, but I would want to know that no one's going to call me and tell me my loved one is dead. And I would take locked in a cell over dead any day of the week.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not the popular decision. It's not the popular, nobody wants that. But at the end of the day, the county jails do it, right? The county jails do it. A lot of the county jails do it. And you don't see a lot of deaths in the county jails because they lock facility. I mean, it's 23-1. Isn't that right? It's like 23-1. You're out.
Yeah.
But also what you got to think about too, and here is, we have a lot of cellmate on cellmate mates death as well. So, if they ever decided that they wanted to do that, they would have to stop using a damn computer system to classify people and to, kind of do it the right way so you can kind of get it right. And I understand, there's certain ways that you do this as well, because, you're going to have some problems when you're locked down for 23 hours a day. It's just, you're going to get tired of your roommate or, whatever.
I shared a bedroom with my sister for 14 years. And I'm certain that there was not a month that went by that we didn't have some sort of problem. But, we were two girls. I guess if we were grown women, it would still be the same thing.
Right. So, there's always going to be problems. But at the end of the day, it should be about, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, and, but what I care about is not reporting on deaths every day and not reporting on somebody about losing their life every day, and to try and, come up with a solution. And, as I said, it's not a popular opinion, but, I like to see people alive leaving prison instead of seeing them dead. And, another thing to kind of back up my point is when you hear all about all of these, somebody got killed in a prison. And, the one thing that I always hear, and I'm sure you as well, is that, no staff was around, or no staff was, they had to call 911 themselves.
Yes.
Because no staff was around.
No, I would never have believed it until I got involved with corrections advocacy. I really thought it was different than what it is. And it's pretty awful.
Yeah. So, and going back into Smith, and as you said, that's one of our hotbeds right now. All facilities are terrible, but, there is something going on every day at Smith State Prison. Every day there's something going on. Susan alluded to it just a few minutes ago. For the last 2 days, you've had life flights coming in. You had, 2 days ago, you had a guy that was stabbed 31 times.
Yes. I believe 15 yesterday.
Yeah, you had a guy stabbed 31 times the day before yesterday. And then just yesterday, you had another one that was stabbed 15 times. So Smith is a major concern right now. And I hate to devote every podcast to Smith State Prison, but it's a hotbed right now, and we have to use this podcast to bring that attention to these places. And it's a major concern right now on what's going on at Smith and the leadership. at Smith State Prison. It's deplorable.
Though, Brian, that what's crazy to me when you go and look at the first, let's set aside July for a moment and just the first 6 months of 2023. ASMP had 32 deaths. Now they had several homicides there, maybe 4, something like that. GDCP had 13 homicides. Johnson had 9. Ware had 8. Coastal had 6. Baldwin, Phillips, and Smith had 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 7 prisons. No, I apologize. 8 prisons had 554. 62. Half the deaths. But Smith isn't first. It's not even second. It's not even close to third. But yet, what's going on there is frightening in that we've seen with our own eyes groups of people attack another man and kill him before our eyes on video. We know that can happen, that it can turn into something more than a conflict between 2 cellmates.
Yeah. And, so, like I said, Smith is a major concern just because, you have a warden who incites all of this stuff that goes on. He doesn't know how to run a facility. He has no warden experience. He was a deputy warden before he came, before he was assigned to Smith. But he has no experience on running a facility, and the vast majority of the problem is on him. He is incompetent to run a facility as dangerous as Smith, and there was complaints on him before he even was the warden at Smith.
Yeah, he was warden at Valdosta.
Deputy warden.
He was deputy warden, but he was acting warden there for maybe 9 months. But in the scheme of things, that is very little experience, and particularly very little experience to go to a really dangerous facility. And, like I think you've mentioned before, his second day at Smith was the first homicide of the year. And you can say what you want to about Brian Adams. In those first 6 weeks of the year 2023, he didn't have anybody killed there.
Well, no, I mean he was covering his butt. He was selling his drugs and all of that stuff, but people wasn't dying.
Yeah, it's we've got a crazy mixed up world here, and this what we're seeing, this is the first time we've seen a number quite so high at GDCP, and yet I believe 3 or 4 weeks ago we've spent a considerable amount of time talking about the videos that we saw at GDCP in classification where there would normally be very little movement. You saw people. You saw almost almost Arnie-like. I guess that's not the right word exactly, but they marched down the hall intent on if they weren't intent on killing the man, they were intent on nearly killing him. I thought with that video we had seen someone killed. But,
yeah, I mean, I think everybody.
We saw another one a couple of weeks after that, just like that. Numerous people stabbing someone.
And before we move on as well, I wanted to also send our condolences to um, Justin Tyler Smith's family. He was the individual that was beaten at Smith State Prison on the 27th of July. And his family, well, let me back up. He was beaten at Smith State Prison on July 27th. From my understanding, it took them a while to get to him as well. And they had to, flag down guards and things of that nature. And they finally got someone and they were able to get him to the hospital. And unfortunately, he passed away yesterday afternoon at a local hospital. I guess I don't really know which one, but so we want to send condolences to his family for unfortunately getting that news that no family would ever want to receive of their loved one being killed in prison. So it's unfortunate, but we just wanted to send our condolences to his family. As I said, he passed away yesterday afternoon after being brutally attacked last week at Smith State Prison. So, Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of the deaths, one of the things I've been tracking or at least analyzing the data on inmate mortality now, going back to 2014, and what we saw something happen in 2021 that we'd not seen before, and that was that the average age of those who were dying was getting younger and younger. Up until then, all I had heard about was the aging inmate population and the cost of keeping elderly people who needed medical care in prison. Well, that isn't what's going on in Georgia. I mean, of course, we have people who are very old and are in prison that could be at home and not cause a problem. Of course, I'm not dismissing that. But in 2022, for the whole year, the average age of the person who died was 53 years old. In the first 6 months of 2023, the average age is 51 years old. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The people who are dying by homicide are younger. They're the youngest of the people of the various manners of death: accidental homicide, natural, suicide, and undetermined. Homicides average the youngest. But after that is suicides, and then this catch-all of undetermined. And it's sort of hard to say much about accidental deaths other than we've seen right now, first 6 months of the year, we've got 8 accidental deaths in Georgia Department of Corrections. We've never, ever seen that. 3, I believe, is the most we've ever seen. And then suddenly we've got 8 in 6 months. Also, keep your eye on these undetermined deaths. We ended up in 2022, we had 239 deaths. 51 of them, that's more than 20%, were considered undetermined. And that would be okay if someone would go back and check the autopsy and say, oh, well, we hadn't put down what the autopsy said here. Let's make that one suicide or whatever it is. But I've been following up on the year 2021 and the year 2020 and haven't been able to find out. They haven't updated those yet based on the autopsy. But 20% undetermined is, in my view, outrageous, because that in years up until 2021, that ran 4 people maybe a year, and now we're at 50. And we're on track a little bit lower than that so far in 2023. But again, we are looking at, for if we extrapolate, we're looking at 254 deaths with 42 suicides and 26 homicides if we keep on just like we are. So we didn't mention it yet, but it is worth mentioning. On this most recent tranche of mortality information that was obtained by Human and Civil Rights from Georgia Department of Corrections, that included the Mr. Ramirez, who died in the cage at Telfair. And Georgia Department of Corrections has said that that was natural causes. I'm sorry, I don't see it. Someone intentionally put him in the cage and locked him in there and left him until his body temperature was 107 once it got to the hospital.
Well, so I have to stop you there for just a second, because we don't know, and we don't have any evidence or proof that anybody intentionally caused him to put him in there to die. Now, we do have evidence to back up what we're saying as far as him being put in the cage and not being checked on for hours.
You are right. The intention is not there, but the conclusion is hardly a natural process.
No, right, and I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that. I just want to be careful because we have people that watch this and listen to this who don't have good intentions and who don't agree with our work and our mission, and they will take that and use it as if they'll take it and spin that. So, we don't have. Yeah, I've already said it. So but continue. Go ahead.
Anyway, that's the type of whether it's misreporting, misrepresenting, it's baked in the cake when we get the data from GDC. I love data when it's right, and I question data when I can't make sense of it. And it's hard to look at these numbers from July and believe that there were only 2 homicides and they happened within 24 hours of each other at the same prison, and only 3 suicides when we're tracking 5 or 6 a month every month.
And so let me jump in here because this is important. This is very important. So, according to the Georgia Department of Corrections, and the Human and Civil Rights Coalition has reached out to the Georgia Department of Corrections about this list that you see on your screen. And if you look at this list and you get down between 730 and 731, if you even go back to 727, we know, because we've heard and we've verified these deaths at Smith State Prison. And if you look on this list, there is no Smith State Prison anywhere on this list.
No.
There's also not some other facilities that we have heard that they were deaths at that we really didn't confirm, but was very, very possible that that person passed away. And the word that we received from the Georgia Department of Corrections today is that this list is not a completed list, and the actual list for July will be out within the next, 10 days. So my question is, and that's why it goes back to calling them the Shady Bunch, is why would you put this list out knowing that it wasn't all the way complete and accurate? when you put lists out like this, and people have heard that there was deaths at facilities, and you got good information that there was deaths at these facilities, and you know that there was deaths at these facilities, yet you don't put it on this list. And also, what they also didn't do, or not what they didn't do, but all of these, natural causes. I don't believe it one bit, because they will cover their tail as much as they can, and to not make them look bad, that they're going to list a death as natural causes, when we know that there was that it was a homicide, or it was some type of, I guess you technically could list, if there was medical neglect, you could still list it as a natural cause. But I go back on this list to and let me see if I can find it. I go back to this list on 7/15 of 2023.
Herrera.
Yes, we know for a fact that his death was caused by medical neglect. We know that he was trying to get medical attention and did not receive medical attention, and was sent. And when he did receive medical attention, they saw him in medical, and they sent him back to his dorm. And a few hours later, he was dead. So you can list that, I guess, as natural causes, but at the end of the day, it still doesn't neglect the fact that medical neglect was involved. Also, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care who anybody likes it or not, and I'm going to try not to cuss when I say it, but to list Juan Ramirez death at Telfair State Prison on 7/21, to list his death as a natural causes, as a complete slap in the face to the family and to everybody else that knew exactly what happened. And I can't really go into a lot of details because I just can't, because I can't reveal the source of the information, but I can tell you, and you can believe it, that this guy death shook a lot of people at that facility because of the state of his body when it left that prison. And to list that as natural causes is a complete slap in the face. And I got some other words for him too, but I'll just leave that at that. But it's a complete slap in the face to the family and to anybody that was involved, to list that death as just natural causes, like nothing happened. I mean, the guy was left in a cage from 10 o'clock in the morning until 3:30, almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was over 100 degrees outside. So that's what you deal with these people. And then you have some of them that want to know, well, why don't you take us at our word, and why don't you, we would never lie to you, or we don't tell lies, y'all over exaggerate. It's crap like this, and I get it. They probably don't want to admit to any wrongdoing, but the cat's out of the bag now, Susan. They staff snitch on them more than inmates.
The crying shame at Telfair. The previous death they had, that was in June, caused it resulted in what some might have called a disturbance, where people, officers were attacked in the you remember the disturbance, and I think an officer broke his arm jumping over a rail or something. But that was in response to the previous death that was in the hole at Telfair. And that was widely thought to be something completely different than the way that it was portrayed. Yeah.
No, I mean, I understand, and I get what you're saying, and I
Yeah.
agree with you, but I can't get over the fact that, and I mean, maybe I'm not surprised because it's the shady bunch that we're dealing with, you know, but at some point, they got to cut the crap, and they have to start being transparent to the public, transparent to these families. And if they do something, sometimes, Susan, it shouldn't even take family members um, seeking litigation because of the negligence that they do. Some stuff shouldn't even have to go to court. They know they know that they were negligent when it happened. Go ahead and pay the price. Pay up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they like to fight. They know they're negligent. They like to fight until the end, and then they settle. And it's just ridiculous. It's crazy.
Well, I think it should be apparent to everybody that, well, if people were to see it my way, I guess it should be apparent to everybody that we are not looking at individual cases here. There is a pattern, and it's a pattern of escalating numbers of deaths every year, with the causes being either violence or suicide in large part, other than this big blanket of natural causes that is a catch-all for Lord knows what. Apparently, natural causes is what happens when you bake in a cage, or natural causes is what happens to someone who is begging for medical care and sent back to die in his cell. We just had a settlement in the last few days, may have been last week, but um, a woman who Agnes Bohannon was her name. Her family received a settlement. Well, they and their attorney, $1.5 million. She had been in GDC for like 9 days, and she was walking around complaining about her chest hurt, her that she had pain in her arm, her jaw, and they she asked for an EKG, and they told her she couldn't have one. She'd already had one. And 9 days after coming into the system, she's dead. So that took that happened in 2019. So this is about a 4-year process to get to a settlement, and nobody wants a settlement. These families send, their loved ones to prison, and they want them to come home. That's what.
Yeah, and I mean,
It doesn't occur to
yeah,
people
and
that yeah.
go ahead.
As it just doesn't occur to people when they're hugging their loved one goodbye, that they're going to prison, that they're not coming home, and Lord only knows how they might die.
Yeah, and I mean, as I said, so at this point, they don't understand anything, but lawsuits. They don't understand. They rather pay the money out for a lawsuit in 3 or 4 years after the incident instead of getting their mess together now and trying to fix these problems. I think I remember you telling me a couple weeks ago that they actually budget money for settlements in lawsuits.
Well, all they've got to do is look at how much did we pay out last year. It'll be more this year. Um, it it has to be a consideration if you're a bean counter. But if you're loved one of someone who has gone to prison, uh, the amount isn't going to bring your loved one home.
Yeah. And, so it's just unfortunate, but, closing out this segment right here about this list, um, we'll wait for the 10 days to come, and we'll see and we'll compare it to this information now and the information that we're going to get in about 10 days. And supposedly this list is supposed to be updated and, I guess, added to and things of that nature. And, we'll hold them to it and see exactly what they decide that they want to add to or change or whatever. But, that's what it is. And, according to someone with the Human and Civil Rights Coalition that reached out to them, is that, this list is incomplete and will be updated within, the next 10 days for July. So
I can't stop myself. The one of those deaths, the first one, Lance Lampkin at Valdosta. The next morning, I went to check if GDC had pulled him out of the system. Typically, they remove the person from the system by 8 o'clock in the morning. But I watched it all day, and Mr. Lampkin remained in the system, which is usually how I verify that, if they've been pulled out of the system, perhaps they really have they are deceased. But we received a copy of the letter that went to a victim of Mr. Lampkin, and this is part of these victim resources. That letter went out first thing the morning after he died to the family. So that letter went out before he'd even been pulled out of the GDC database. And that came out of pardons and paroles. So how can pardons and paroles know before GDC has time to pull it out of their database? But that did happen, and there's a lot going on that we cannot discern. If only if it's not deceptive, it certainly feels deceptive, and to use Brian's word, it feels shady.
Oh yeah, and I don't expect anything anything more from the Shady Bunch, but complete deception.
Yeah.
They're never wrong. They're never wrong about anything that we see, and they never want you to believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe because 7 people tell you something that it can't be true. Don't believe it. You listen to us. We're going to tell you exactly what happened. And that's what that gets to at the end of the day. Don't believe your lying eyes, and everything that you hear is not true. And of course, we know that people exaggerate things all the time, every day. We have to work double hard to verify the information before we can report on it. And I know we spend I don't want to say hours, but we spend a few hours every day trying to verify information so that we can get it out to the public. Before, and we sometimes we can verify pretty quickly, and then sometimes we can never verify it and we don't post it, or we don't say anything about it just because we can't verify it.
No,
So
that's absolutely true.
And so we don't try to be like the Shady Bunch and just put stuff out there and hopefully that it'll confirm itself. A prime example, and a lot of people don't know this. Susan, and it's just going back to, trying to verify stuff. We couldn't verify for days. We'd heard that Melissa Lawson had been fired from Wilcox State Prison, but we just couldn't verify it. And so we didn't put it out there until, we finally got some sources that was pretty solid. That told us that came forward and told us that, hey, her and, so-and-so had, I don't even remember the other girl's name now.
O'Neill.
Lieutenant O'Neill had been fired. So, unfortunately, we're just not like the Shady Bunch,
Well, at a glance, since we're looking at this screen with the July deaths on it, what sticks out to you? What sticks out to me is that number 647. And looking at inmate GDC numbers for the last 9 years, I've never seen one less than 4 digits, and I've only seen one of those. Someone with a 5-digit GDC number has been in the system a long time. Someone with a 3-digit GDC number, either he's 150 years old or was, or they've made a mistake. But no one has checked it, and we're not allowed to question it. So hopefully when we get the real report in 10 days, we'll have something other than a GDC number of 647.
Yeah, if they even catch it. I mean, as I said, they're the Shady Bunch, so they wouldn't care. They probably wouldn't care one way or another if they caught it or not. So
I maintain that they don't think of these as human beings, and therein lies the problem. If these are not human beings, then why are you going to catch a felony for dogfighting?
Well, I mean, and as we get ready to close out here, going back to the human being, comment, we know they don't treat them and look at them as human beings. And I saw a picture earlier, and They Have No Voice, and it's pretty current. It's a pretty current picture. And I want to pop it up on the screen right now. I guess this was a dinner tray.
Yes.
From today at Smith State Prison, and this is what they feed human beings now. And I have to say this every time I bring this up, because we touch on this. Of course, we know it's prison, right? Should some people be there? Of course. But, and you alluded to this on the last podcast, they still should be treated as human beings, and they still should be treated, humanely. And this is what they feed people.
This is for a grown man.
Or woman.
Or woman, yeah. A kindergartner could eat that, except they wouldn't unless they were starving.
Yeah, and I mean, so this is what you're dealing with, and unfortunately, like, it's not just at Smith. This is everywhere.
Wilcox had the same meal today.
Yeah, I mean, this is everywhere. So and this is the type of stuff, I think their budget's going to be, I don't know, I can't remember now what it's going to be the next fiscal year. But they have plenty of money. They have plenty of money to feed edible portions. Yeah. And yet this is what they feed someone. And this is not a one-off. This is about every day how a tray looks. And yet, I don't know, Susan. So, the only thing I know to do is to keep sharing this stuff and, letting people know, what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Well,
Um,
you just said a key word there, share. We are
yeah,
begging people, share these podcasts, share share these photos that are embedded in them, share these stories you're hearing, share the numbers that are in here. And right there, you've got Governor Brian P. Kemp's Chief of Staff's cell phone number. Help yourself. Give him a call. Text him a picture of the meal tonight.
yeah, and we'll post this picture. Um, so we'll post this picture and share it, send it, text it to them. As I said, we understand that this is prison. We both understand that this is prison, and but they were not sentenced to a inhumane prison. They were not sentenced to death. Um, and that's what they're getting every single day. This is what they're getting every day: death, violence, uh, unedible food. Now this tray looks decent than what I've some of the stuff I have saw. It looks better than
Yeah,
than this crap.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, as Susan said, a 5-year-old would eat that. So we got to share this stuff. We got to continue. I noticed, Susan, and we're closing out. I promise you, we're closing out. But I noticed we can post a video of somebody getting their head cut off, and it'll get 20,000 views. But when we share these videos, or when we have these podcasts that give information and touch on stuff and try to help people, we don't get we don't get the views that we get on that. And I believe that both of them are equally important. And so we implore you to please share um, these podcasts and these lives that we do. Because it's very, very important that we continue to get this stuff out. I think the Human and Civil Rights page has about 30,000 followers. I think that's right.
I
It,
think it's
it
about
may be it may
38.
be, yeah, it may be 38,000 followers, and something else 16,000 something. So we need your help. We definitely need your help to continue to spread the word. It doesn't take 2 seconds to share the stuff that we post.
No.
Uh, it doesn't take any amount of time to share this stuff and to continue to build this coalition and to build They Have No Voice, and to get the public and get people talking about this situation that's going on, because it's a situation. I mean, it's
when when you put a picture up like that, you share a picture like that, there's no denying. After that picture was made, that plate was cleaned. Somebody ate that tonight, and in fact, thousands of people ate that tonight.
yep.
So you can't deny it. It's like the videos; they're in your face. There's violence like you can't imagine it. You have to see it to believe it. People could say, "Oh well," like Brian said earlier, it's prison. What do they expect? It's not going to be all gourmet meals. No, but adequate portions and enough nutrition that their teeth don't fall out of their heads is required.
Yeah.
And your friends, your family, your neighbors will not know if you don't show them, if you don't share this and show them.
Right. And not just your friends and family, anybody that's out there. Go on our YouTube channel and just like it. Go to your various social media platforms and share it. For everybody to see. We have to get the eyes continue to get. Let me rephrase that. We have to continue to get the eyes and the conversation going about around all of this stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Continue to send us videos. Continue to send us pictures. Continue to send us information if you're inside of the walls of stuff that's going on, and we're going to share it. We're going to continue to build on this conversation, and it's not the Human and Civil Rights Coalition has never been politically correct, and we're not going to start. If you want something that's politically correct and nice posters and flyers and all this stuff, then you can go over. There's several in Georgia that tries to be politically correct. We're not going to be politically correct. We're going to show it. We're going to have the conversation about it, and we're going to do something about it. And I can honestly say that we have been, and we're going to continue to do it. So, Susan, anything else you want to add on that before we close out?
No, I don't know what else we can say. We've laid it out there for you tonight. This is ugly.
Yep, it is.
Let's make it change.
Yes, let's make a change for the better. We are the ones that can make this change. We are the voices for those that has no voice behind those walls. And continue to help us spread the word. As we said before we open up, when we opened up at the start of the podcast, we really need your help. If you could help donate to us, we are in the process of working on litigation for these cages. We want them to stop operating them. And we need your help to do it. We got a goal of $1,000, and as we said, if you tuned in late, it's about $350 to file these lawsuits, and we are definitely going to file them. And any support financially that you can give us would be 100% appreciative. And as I said, those cages are a big point of emphasis right now, and we're going to try our best to get them to stop using them. And I'm tired of seeing deaths, and I'm tired of seeing all of this stuff. So if you can help us out, we would greatly appreciate it. Susan, I'll let you close us out, and we're gonna get off here.
Okay, everybody, you'll be back with us next Thursday. Is it Thursday?
Yes.
Next Thursday night. And I do this to him every week. And we hope to have something of interest. If something pops that we need to let you know, we might drop in one evening with you before then. But other than that, we'll see you on Thursday evening next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate y'all on with us tonight, and please share this, and we will speak with everybody later on. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.